And tell us, I mean, we're hearing stories that the IEC says that it's investigating allegations that an electoral officer in Mpumalanga attempted to rig votes. Do tell us more about this.
Thanks a lot, Alicia. We are here in Belfast. The electoral officer in question is Mr. Henry Mhlaba, who's the municipal electoral officer based in Thulamahashe. I actually went there this morning. We spoke to him. He's still very much on duty. What actually happened was the Bushbuckridge Residents Association marched on Friday to the IEC offices demanding the removal of Mr. Mhlaba and other officials. They were accusing them of conniving with the ANC and to rig votes. And this emanated from the fact that you have about 25,000 people who have registered for special votes in this municipality. And the small parties, the opposition parties, are disputing that number because according to them, there are very few people who are employed in Bushbuckridge. So it doesn't make sense to can have about 25,000 people registered for special votes. So that's the number that they are disputing. So their demands was that Mr. Mhlaba should be removed and that this number, 25,000 people who have registered for special votes, should be investigated. But as things stands, Mr. Mhlaba is still very much on duty.
So what does this mean then, Matswele? I mean, what does the IEC say? When are we going to hear the final ruling in terms of this case?
We haven't really received any feedback from the IEC. We are hoping by tomorrow there will be something solid. But the concerning factor here is that when we went through most of these voting stations today, I'll take one in Dwaslop for instance. There are about 419 people who have registered for special votes there. But by midday, only 6 people had showed up. So, and that's the concern that Bushbuckridge Residents Association has, that you have so many people who have registered and they actually want to see people showing up to vote. So we'll be monitoring the situation because we still have tomorrow as a voting day. But then the biggest thing to monitor at the moment is the 25,000 people who have registered for special votes versus the number of people who are actually showing up. But to this point, it's a no-show here in Bushbuckridge in most of the voting stations.
But Matswele, maybe do tell us now, which parties seem to play a more dominant role in terms of the local elections in that area?
Well, you will recall previously the ANC has had a monopoly in Mpumalanga and here in the Bushbuckridge. But in the previous local government election, Bushbuckridge Residents Association gave the ANC a run for its money and they became the main opposition party. And you have the introduction of the EFF at the moment, who have also hinted on a possible coalition with Bushbuckridge Residents Association. So it becomes very interesting that if the EFF and Bushbuckridge Residents Association could garner more votes, they could actually form a coalition to unseat the ANC. It's still not very clear because you have the EFF who seem to have more followers as well, but it's not clear at this moment with the ANC still a governing party in this municipality.
Matswele, do tell us more. I mean, on the ground there, what are people saying, that the people that have managed to actually turn out at the voter stations? Are they excited to vote? I mean, what is their reading into these elections?
People are very excited to vote. The main issue in Bushbuckridge over the years has been shortages of water. Like where we are now in Belfast, you'll recall we ran a series of stories where the locals here were attacked by crocodiles while trying to fetch water in the river. And here in particular in Belfast, most of the locals are saying they are not going to vote because there is nothing to vote for. The issue of water always comes up. up. Whenever you talk to the locals, they always refer to you to water shortages. As it stands, the municipality has reticulated most of these villages. You would know we have Inyaka Dam here in Bushbuckridge, which is meant to supply the whole area with water. So they have managed to reticulate most of these villages, but there is no water, there is no connection into households, there is no connection at all. People still walk distances to try and get water, and the main source of water, it's a river just adjacent to the Kruger National Park, and it's crocodile infested. It's a very dangerous environment.
Now I have to hear from you, Matwell. I've been asking all our reporters this on the scene. I mean, in terms of ballot watching and making sure that the elections are free and fair, have you seen party officials that represent the different parties on the scene, as well as IEC officials at the voting centres?
Bushbuckridge Residents Association, for instance, has been very cautious of rigging, and by 4 o'clock this morning they were at the IEC center here in Bushbuckridge, accompanying the IEC officials to different voting stations to ensure that ballot papers are delivered safe and make sure everything is fair. And we have noticed in all the voting stations that there were party agents representing their particular parties and watching closely the events as they unfold, as people show up to vote.
Thank you so much to Matwela Ngobeni, who was live to us from Belfast, out in, of course, Bushbuckridge. Let's now go